last time. All right, Taylor B. All right, here we go. We're going to be starting any second now. Okay, Taylor, the stage is yours.
All righty. Thank you, everybody, for coming. My name is Taylor Beckett. I'm the Piedmont Regional Director for the Young Democrats of North Carolina and the former chapter president of the Young Democrats of Cabarrus County. I'm hosting tonight because our current chapter president had a last-minute thing come up. She does send her apologies for not being able to make it, but she did send me something to read off to everybody as we get this started. So she writes, "Thank you all so much for coming to our honor roll education panel, and an extra thank you to our school board candidates and Superintendent for Public Instruction candidate, Dr. Jen Mangram, for speaking with us all this evening. This year, America's and North Carolina's education system are in an unprecedented crisis, but are also in the position for unprecedented change. It is a privilege to host students, educators, concerned neighbors, and our candidates here tonight as we discuss the future of education in Cabarrus County." So with that being said, we want to jump on into it. I do want to say thank you for all of our auxiliaries and county party for coming together to help co-host this. Obviously, this time it's hosted by the Young Democrats, but this is really a Cabarrus Coalition event. And with that being said, I'll kick it over to Vincent Beza, the Cabarrus County Senior Democrats Chair, so that he can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, a prayer, and anything else. Vincent?
Well, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, everyone who is on this call. If you all have yourself muted, that way we won't have like redundancy. But I know we will hear in our spirit and in our hearts the pledge that we're all going to say together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I can hear that reverberating through the room, and I thank all of you for that. And my prayer for us tonight is this, that we all reach out to that higher power that will guide us to the better angels, that will help us to teach our young children, to prepare them to be the next generation of real Americans, Americans who live by that pledge that we just read. So I'd like to start the meeting and turn it back to Taylor and introduce our speakers as they each come out. And I know, Taylor, you had some guidance and questions and so forth. So I turn it over to you, sir.
All right, so before we get started on our panel, I wanted to make sure to give each candidate a little one-on-one time with the room. And so we're going to go down the list and just give them a minute or so to introduce themselves and talk about themselves, their story and all of that. And we're going to start with our special guest tonight, Dr. Jen Mangram. She's running for North Carolina State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Dr. Mangram, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I'm so excited to hear all of the candidates because I know local boards are so important, and it's a tough job. It's a really tough job. So I'll just tell you real quickly, I'm from Eastern North Carolina, Onslow County. My dad was a Marine. My dad served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam twice. And when my father retired, he got his GED. He went to a community college and then UNCW and became a 4th grade teacher. So I watched Sergeant Robinson move into the classroom. I was about 8. My father chose Bell Fork Elementary School, which is high in poverty, predominantly kids of color. I was there not too long ago and said that, and someone yelled, "It still is," which is the problem, right? That's the problem, hasn't changed. And he chose that school because of equity, and he talked to me about the inequity of schools. And like I said, it was about 8 or 9, and that really stuck with me. My mom, Kat, was a kindergarten teacher. She was an artist from England, came over and taught kindergarten in the churches at first, right? And then eventually moved to public kindergarten. my favorite story about her is there's a boy named Buddy Martin in our community. The way you guys were talking about your community, that's how we were. You know, everyone knew everyone. And Buddy had cerebral palsy, and his parents wanted him to go to public kindergarten, and the administration pushed back, saying it would be too expensive, you know, they were nervous about all the, you know, legalities, but my mom went to court and got Buddy into public kindergarten. And the highlight of the story is Buddy became a pediatrician. So I watched my parents really, you know, not just talk about equity and opportunity, but always putting that first. They knew public school should be a place where people had opportunity. The last thing I'll say is right before school, 14 years old, my parents are getting ready for school, and my father yells for me. I go run in the kitchen. And my mother at 49 was in the midst of a massive heart attack. I held her, she fell. She died in my arms. My father called the paramedics. They took her and my dad, and I was home alone. And I didn't know what to do. And I ended up walking to school. And I walked to Northwoods Park Junior High, where Mrs. Travis was going to be there and take care of me. And I wanted to be that teacher. I wanted to be the teacher like my mom, and I wanted to be the teacher like the ones who helped me and guided me on my path, because it was rocky after that. So I was an elementary school teacher for 14 years before I moved to higher ed to help young people become teachers. So that's where my passion is. I've always been in public education, and I'm in it because my heart's in it. Someone told me the other day, Jen, it's not new to you. Say, I'm not new to it, I'm true to it. And that's really who I am. So thank you for letting me be here, and I'm excited about the conversation.
All right.
Thank you.
We have Sydney. Sydney, you're up. Go ahead and tell us all about yourself.
Hey, good evening. I won't tell like everything, but my name is Cindy Furtenbach, and I have been serving Cabarrus County Schools on the school board for almost 18 years. I'm a new retiree from a long technology career and have been enjoying more time to focus on what I call my community service passions, such as the 9 School Tools Project, which some of you have seen me soliciting online for that, but it's kind of fun and exciting to do, and especially when we start delivering to the schools. I'm a new guardian ad litem here in the county. That is something I have long been interested in and have not been able to pursue it just for time. But I've started that, and I mentioned before we went live tonight that I feel like I'm taking a college final exam all over again, trying to get the reports just right. And I'm also involved with a state committee that is working on micro-credentials with former Governor Beth Perdue. My 2 daughters attended Cabarrus County Schools the whole way from K to 12, and one of them is now a teacher in her 9th year of teaching at an elementary school. And I'm also a proud Nana with another little baby due in about 3 weeks. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Keisha.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks to the coalition for having us on tonight. As Taylor mentioned, my name is Keisha Sandich, and I am your 2020 candidate for Cabarrus County Board of Education. So just a little bit about me. I'm a wife and I'm a mother of 2, one who has graduated from Cabarrus County Schools and another who is currently in 8th grade here in Cabarrus County Schools as well. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've been licensed since 2016. What brought me to Concord, North Carolina from Inglewood, California is my mom saying, you need to leave this place and do something with yourself. I want to see you make it better than myself and your dad. So I ended up coming here to Barbara Scotia College in Concord, North Carolina on a basketball scholarship in 1996. In 1998, I became a permanent resident of Cabarrus County, and I did not look back. I've been here ever since. Both my parents live here in North Carolina. My dad's in Kannapolis. My mom is in Salisbury, trying to move her a little bit closer. But that's me. My son is in college now at the University of South Carolina, and he is number 90 for the Gamecocks football. Short and sweet, sorry.
All right, next we have Kat Buns-Moore. You're up.
Well, first of all, it's so good to see everyone. I've missed our connections and our meetings and getting to see everyone and staying caught up. But my name is Catherine Buns-Moore and running for the school board. And I have lived in Cabarrus County all of my life. In fact, I live in the house that my great-grandfather built, still on the family farm, one of the few farms left in Cabarrus County. I knew at a young age I wanted to be a teacher. So went to Appalachian State and majored K-9 with a concentration in math and science. Thought I wanted to be that kindergarten teacher. Came back here and did student teaching in kindergarten at Wolf Meta, the hardest job I ever had. Besides, my first job was a student bus driver. And I did keep my bus license up until about 10 years ago. And now it scares me to think that I actually did that job because it's a huge responsibility. So then when I moved back to Concord, I went back to Appalachian, got a master's in counseling. At that time, Cabarrus County really did not have a counseling program. Went to Shelby City Schools and taught 2 years there, and got my 6-year degree in counseling at UNC Charlotte and a school administration, another second master's in school administration. So I was very happy to come back to Cabarrus County, started the counseling program at Royal Oaks Elementary, and then moved from there to R. Brown McAllister and started the program there. And then the highlight of my career was getting to go back to my elementary school of Odell. And my children went to Odell. My children are also graduates of Robinson High School. And I just love Cabarrus County, and I love Cabarrus County schools. I think we've got a lot of good things going on, and my passion of education and my passion of children, you know, I just want to serve. In 2018, I came very close to a seat. So I'm planning on getting one of those seats this time. My father was a county commissioner here in the county in the 80s, the early 80s, and he was the liaison person for the school board. And so I've been attending school board meetings ever since I was 18 years old. So again, I'm looking forward to being on that board.
All right, next up we have Niquela.
Hi, everybody. I am Niquela Dees Blanton, candidate for Cabarrus County School Board. I am actually from Charlotte. I am born and raised in Mecklenburg County, attended South Mecklenburg High School, and I have a undergraduate degree in criminal justice and a master's in counseling and administration. I also worked in Mecklenburg and Cabarrus counties. In Mecklenburg County and Cabarrus, I was a probation parole officer, and most recently left Cabarrus probation parole about 2 years ago. I have been a licensed therapist for how many years? 6, I think, for about 6 years. Finished my degree back in 2010. And I'm a mom. I have 2 children with special needs. I have a 22-year-old with cerebral palsy, and so I heard someone mention that. And so I also have a 13-year-old with Down syndrome and ADHD. And they are my everything, and they are pretty awesome. If you've ever been on my page, you've kind of seen them doing some fabulous things on there. But they are my why. They are the reason that I'm doing this, and I have had some fabulous experiences, and I was very, very afraid of coming over to Cabarrus County. I had built a nice little village over there for myself and my family in Mecklenburg, and the educators were good and things were working well for us. So I came over and I was starting from scratch, and I was afraid, and had a little bump in the road, but the bump just simply blew up and turned into a balloon, and things just flew and took off from there. And we have just had tremendous success. My family has here in Cabarrus County. And I've run into people who haven't had those successes. And I would like to have a voice in making all the families that come away, and not just families of children with special needs, just families in general, to have the kind of experiences that we've had. I mean, we have just been able to collaborate with the teachers and the administrators, doing outside the box thinking things, and things that people have said in the past it wouldn't work, or I can't see how this is going to happen, and having somebody in the administration say, let's try it. And I have to tell you, every time we've tried it, it's worked. And it's just been, I think, eye-opening for not only myself and my family, but for the administrators to see how things can work when we just come together and use our minds and not always stick, you know, to the old ways of doing things. So I did mention my husband. I do have a husband as well. He is a local attorney, a public defender in Charlotte. And he is very, very helpful here with me and very supportive, and everything I do, he does, except cook. But he's really hands-on with these guys, and he's excited about this. And I'm excited, and I thank you guys for allowing me this opportunity.
All right, and next up we have Miss Nora.
Nora, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you for that. So my name is Nora May. I'm married. We've lived in Concord for about 3 years, and prior to that in Kannapolis. I have 3 children in Cabarrus County schools. One of them is in elementary school, and the other 2 are in James Robinson High School. So I am running for because I wanted to be a representative of parents, other parents. I don't really have any school background. I work for Wells Fargo in the facility coordinating. So I don't have a lot of background, but I just want to help out the families of our community and just be a part of this whole process.
Okay, so now we're getting into the panel section of our event tonight. And these questions were taken from submissions from students, from parents, and from teachers. And really, we just gather them from all over. As I've told the candidates, this is going to be a very open forum. So when we ask a question, there may be like 1 or 2 specific for, you know, certain people maybe. But for the most part, it's open. So if we ask a question, feel free to talk what you can on the subject. You don't have to speak on a subject. Really just jump in if you have something to say. So I will get started, and we have a whole list of questions, and we will definitely not get to them all before we run out of time, but it's better to be over-prepared. So my first question submitted to us is, what do you think is the most important responsibility of a school board member or a state superintendent? And anybody can jump in.
I guess I'll start.
Yeah, so then I'll second.
Okay. What's the most important role of a superintendent? You know, I think it's different in 2020 because we have had someone who's been completely inept in the office. And we've also had 10 years of, you know, underfunding, of dismantling of public education, of inequity, of the Leandro case, you know, being ignored. And so more than anything, I need to galvanize our educators, our families, our diverse communities to say that North Carolina can lead in education. We know how. I've got some ideas as well as things we've done in the past. But I think it's really important that I be at the bully pulpit. I be out speaking to as many groups as I can about the importance of public education for the common good and how we can do this. We need some positivity in 21, I think. So right now, I think that's most important. And I also have to say, what a great group of candidates, all women, all wonderful. This is exciting. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, Taylor, I'll chime in on this. I think being a school board member is one of the more misunderstood roles, because technically by statute, the main responsibility is to hire the superintendent to manage the operations of the schools. But I like to say, you know, read the mission statement, take it to heart, and understand that you're there to serve the students, support the staff in their roles, not be the staff, but support them in their roles, and realize that everybody is focused on the same goal, to be the best at student achievement that we can. Judge William Hamby told me when I ran the very first time, we were both Wynkoop Elementary parents at the time, and he told me to always remember you need to count to 4, that you cannot do things as a school board member individually. So Jen, you can, but as a local school board member, you have to be able to count to the majority and make sure that other board members are collaborating with you and you with them in order to achieve what will support the district the best.
I'll jump in and answer that question if I can. So I feel just like any other public official, the responsibility of a school board member is to just make sure our community is safe as it relates to our schools, our children in those schools, and whatever baggage they may bring with them into schools. I think that their responsibility is to be transparent and accountable for the decisions that they make. And I think that our school board should be responsible for making sure that the community is involved in the decision-making process.
Excellent. Do we have anybody else who wants to answer, or can we move on? Okay, so moving on to the next question. What are the critical state funding needs for this county's schools, and how would you address those needs?
And on that one, I'd really like to hear too. Like, what is it that is specific to Cabarrus County?
Well, since Taylor sent us the questions ahead of time, I made my list here. And it could fill probably a whole notebook, but I'll hold it at 4. So the first thing is we need for the state to be consistent on increasing teacher pay and not separating teachers out as a different class of state employees from the rest of the state. I don't know if many people realize that, but there has been a separation of teachers and all other state employees. So one is the teacher pay, creating incentives to become a teacher. The Teaching Fellow Program, the way it was originally designed, was a huge incentive. It brought in many males and minorities to be teachers. I used to do the interviews, except for the year that my daughter applied, I couldn't do it, but I used to do the interviews for teaching fellows at UNC Charlotte. And I was constantly amazed with the talent we had in the state. But there needed to be an incentive for kids to maybe, instead of going into a general studies major, go into education. We need for, and Jen, this is where you come in, and I see Amy's on, Amy, you as well, and Marcus. We need for every decision from Raleigh to come with a local impact analysis. Right now, we are told so many things to do. Lower class sizes, but are you giving us extra teacher resources? The answer there is no. So we need you to think, we need Raleigh to think about what happens at the local level. The local government and the individual citizens, like each of us, do not have unlimited coffers to pay for things that Raleigh should be covering. Next, we need, districts need support for our aging infrastructure. Again, that has been pushed completely on the local funds, and we can only do so much, spend so much money on that a year. So, and I hope everybody realizes that the school board itself does not have any revenues. We have to collaborate with the county commissioners. And so Kevin, Sabrina, I'm not sure if you're on there, but that's where the collaboration becomes very, very important. And that's even for maintenance funds too. And lastly, the broadband for the last mile. When I was working on the e-learning commission in Raleigh at the end of the last Democrat governor's term. We were dismissed by now Lieutenant Governor Forrest from our committee that was working with broadband providers to get the broadband to every school. We did achieve that, getting it to every school, even in every nook and cranny of North Carolina. But the next goal was going to push it to homes. And this wouldn't be completely free, public funded, but give an incentive to the providers, just like Governor Cooper recently announced, give an incentive to the providers to get that last mile out to the individual homes. And our vision at that point was to use the schools network to push it beyond. But unfortunately, that didn't happen 8 years ago. Like I said, we were dismissed before we accomplished our work, but I'm glad it's coming back up in Raleigh now. So thank you.
I'd like to echo what Cindy said about the unfunded mandates. I think it's unfair for schools to have to put things in place, or school systems to have to put things in place, but given no additional funding to do what's being required of them. I also think we need to move to a whole person approach. Our state has to approve Medicaid expansion to ensure our schools get the necessary resources they need, and our teachers are able to attend social emotional learning trainings, things of that nature, and that we are able to provide social workers in our schools. Right now, we're not at one social worker per school, and we absolutely should have that. Additionally, the way I would help to ensure our board concerns are heard, I would develop allies at the state level. You know, we should be having conversations with the folks who are representing our county and making sure that, you know, maybe if we have lunch together, or, you know, if we have a Zoom call together and we eat lunch at the same time, we just have to have a better connection to the folks who make decisions that dictate what we are and aren't able to do in our school systems.
Hi, this is Niquela, and I just sent Cindy a message that I think she copied my paper from the I wound up not answering the first question because you literally took those two answers literally verbatim, and then Keisha goes and says ditto, and I'm like, well, yeah, what you said. Absolutely, I am in agreement with everything these ladies are saying here. The only other thing that I would absolutely add to that right now, given the crisis that we're in, is training. Particularly technology training. And I would say that that's not a critical need just for our county right now. It looks like it's a statewide, a nationwide, and a worldwide need. But training is absolutely very important. But with respect to the holistic person, Keisha, I felt like we were probably going to overlap here as well, because we both, because of our backgrounds, yours in social work and mine in mental health and counseling, that is one of the biggest things for me, is that for us to take time to look and see what really is underneath. You know, we've got kids that are acting out at school. We've got behavioral fractions through the roof. We've got suspensions going haywire right now. And we need to find out, you know, what's underneath this. You know, there's traumas everywhere. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily make it to the school. You know, the school doesn't know what's going on at home. So an added piece to that, Keisha, I'm thinking would be not just a family advocate, but school-based therapists as well is another thing that I would like to see, that I feel like would better support the holistic structure there in the school.
And I think forums like this is great, because we all need to do our homework to see who has that educational background or has the education as part of their platform to advocate with them. As Cindy said, we need good communication with our county commissioners and at the state level to advocate and fight for what we do need here in the county.
And Taylor, if I could just comment on something. I think we would probably all agree that it's very important to work with our local delegation serving Raleigh. And our local delegation is always very welcoming if we show up on Jones Street or if we contact them. However, little action, little follow-up from our request ever happens. So that's why it becomes exceedingly important to change the membership in the House and Senate, and have participants representing us, our local delegation, be people who will listen and who will act on our request. Right, Amy?
I was going to add to that too. I think we can't be scared to go across the aisle and, you know, talk about and, you know, discuss what we need. We have to look at this, not, you know, party versus party, but, you know, what's just right and just.
Yeah. The challenge there is what the leadership, what their party leadership wants them to vote for. And especially as younger or newer representatives, they are challenged to follow that leadership. So, and it's hard to get them to change just for the local request.
Yeah, and I'd like to just address some of the things you guys said, because what Cindy described, the whole state needs, right? We need all of those things. My role, you know, the legislature will make the laws and the policies, and or the laws and the budget. The state board is going to make these into policy. My job is to help implement them, but I see it as trying to provide resources so that can happen, as well as remove any barriers that are keeping you from succeeding. I don't see this role as mandating anything, although our current superintendent does. You know, I'm here to be a support to the school boards and the superintendents. And so I would fight the General Assembly against any unfunded mandates. I would also fight them from shifting responsibility of funding to the counties, because the Leandro case says it is the state's responsibility to provide every child with that constitutional education. It would, if the General Assembly funds it, like the Wested report, it's about $8.5 billion that we need, that they're supposed to give to us. And so I agree with all of you. The teaching fellows, it's been cut so much, and now it's in 2 private schools, no HBCUs. You know, how are we going to recruit teachers of color if, you know, if we're not in schools where we would find candidates? I'd like, ultimately, for anyone who wanted to be a teacher not to have to pay tuition. Actually, that's something UNCG is trying to do, because teachers leave with so much debt. They student teach, which is a full-time job, you know, for an entire semester and get no pay, and then they don't make much. But all the things you said, I agree. I hope that you will keep in touch with me. I'm going to have an open door, and I'm going to work with Cabarrus County, but the needs are so great. It's going to take a lot of work to get all those things done. The broadband, by the way, I heard on the news that Durham is paying $1.4 million to put broadband or internet in every housing project in Durham, so that they will have free access to internet. And that's a start, right? So I think we can do it. Julia always tells me, you know, if we can put a missile across the world within 3 feet, we certainly can put broadband across the state of North Carolina so it gets to homes.
I'd like to add to that. Thank you, Dr. Mangram. So I'm Amy Steele, running for the North Carolina House District 82. And I'm not showing my video on purpose, but I do appreciate all of the commentary around what it's going to take to improve the school system here in Cabarrus. Having been a teacher in the school system, having been an assistant principal and a principal in Cabarrus County Schools, I can tell you that everything, you know, Cindy said thus far is absolutely true. We were hit with so many unfunded mandates. And those unfunded mandates really are the test. They're like a litmus test to whether or not educators are going to stay in place or they're going to leave the profession. So one of the things I plan to do when I'm elected to NC House is make sure we fund education at the pre-recession levels. And honestly, back before then, make sure we fund to a level that is reasonably expected for us to be in the top 10 systems in the nation. I also have read the highlights of the Wested report, and I understand that we have a long way to go, but there are so many things we can do to ensure we are on the right track. So I just want to say that emphatically, that as a future representative, my number one goal is making sure we fund the school system and ensure Dr. Mangram and her team and all local LEAs and school boards can do the job they need to do as they hire great teachers. I am a former teaching fellow and former principal fellow, and so I can vouch for sure that those programs work, and they also help to defray the cost of school so that good quality people can complete the programs. I'm happy to say my daughter is now a North Carolina teaching fellow at NC State. She is a Black female. They are working to try to recruit Black people, brown people, Latinx people, but it is so difficult when we are not, targeting or focusing on those areas such as the HBCUs, as Dr. Mangram mentioned. So just wanted to say that I appreciate the conversation, and thank you to the Young Dems for this evening.
Amy, that was great. I also want to say, because we had a social worker, right, and a counselor, and I remember when you were introducing yourselves, I put my vision and mission on there, but it is about the whole child, but also we need to move from what education has been, which has been competing and based on tests, high stakes tests, and about the GDP and big tech. And we need to move to where we're thinking about the well-being of our children. And so I see this as a real opportunity. I think one of you said that earlier, for post-pandemic transformation. We're going to do things differently. First, we have to win in 2020, but then we have to really think about what do we want our children to become, and then how do we help them get there? And right now, I think we've done a disservice to children for about 2 decades.
All right. Awesome conversation there. That was question 2, I think. So I'm going to jump forward just a tiny bit and get to a question that is very important for many. And it's kind of weird, so let me try to figure out how to phrase this so I can speak it. So on an importance scale of very important, somewhat important, neither important or unimportant, how important is pre-kindergarten and why?
Pre-kindergarten, so I'm gonna speak on this one if I can. One of my dreams, or one of my goals, is actually starting the first 1,000 days at a child's birth, because the first 1,000 days are critical to their brain development. Kids don't just start learning at 3, okay? And Medicaid expansion, as someone mentioned, would help, good nutrition. But there's a program in Durham called Book Babies, and Winston-Salem just copied it. And at 6 months old, they go into families who've applied, families in poverty. They can't make more, I think, than $15,000. They take 10 books to the 6-month-old, and they model for the parents how to engage them in language, how to play with the books, how to have certain songs. They've been doing this for 5 years. The group just started kindergarten. They have 100 books because they went every 6 months, and they outperformed the control group. So we know that the earlier we can help parents, be good parents, because they don't know how to teach literacy if they haven't experienced it themselves. And waiting till 3 or 4 is too late. Now, do I want to expand pre-K? Absolutely, right? I want every child to have access. And if Leandro was passed, every 4-year-old would have access to pre-K. So I think that's important, but we should think bigger. We need to be thinking about those babies that, with the help, are going to be much more prepared for kindergarten and be successful.
I think the earlier you can reach children, the better. You can understand what their picture is, whether, what their home environment is, what they're faced with, some of the challenges that the parents may be faced with. And the earlier you intervene, the better off that child is. We are trying to prepare children to be good stewards of their community. And we can't do that just starting at 4. Problems start before age 4, but I do think pre-K is very important. I would definitely support pre-K if, I were on the school board.
All right. I think that pre-kindergarten is extremely important. You guys heard me say I have 2 children with special needs. I'm also from a large family, and some of you guys mentioned having family in your community and growing up really close with them. That was a plus for me, where I was able to identify my children's delays on my own and be able to reach out. But for the families who have a family history or a personal history of low performing in schools themselves, then sometimes they're unable to identify those things for themselves. And pre-K is the level where a lot of these things show themselves. So it's an opportunity not only to assess children, to give them and their families some structure here that they usually don't have. Like Dr. Jen mentioned, you know, going in and showing them, pre-K shows the parents, you know, how to begin to interact and educate their children on a very low level right now. Also, I believe that pre-K is a place where social skills are definitely learned and boundaries begin to be taught. So these are some of the things that oftentimes, because most of these kids come from low income or low performing families with respect to the school system, then they don't often know how to, I guess, close the gaps for their kids. But pre-K is an opportunity to close those gaps as well.
One thing to keep in mind is, where does the money come from? So pre-K is not funded locally except for one school. And Jen, I don't know if you know about our Mary Frances Wall program. It is a pre-K where half of the students are the children, and I will call able-bodied and normal development children of our employees. And the other half are children who have intellectual or physical challenges. But they're all youngsters. So in that school, the kids are not only learning the ABCs and all the things pre-K kids should learn, but they're learning compassion, caring for one another. And from what I've heard, some of the kids continue to be best buddies as they move forward. It's I'll say, one of the hidden gems in the county. But the challenge is, to do more of those programs, we need the funding from the state. Local tax dollars can't support all of the things we would love to do. So it's in your hands, Jen.
Well, and remember, that's what I said. I wouldn't mandate that, but how do we provide an infrastructure so that communities can do those kinds of things, right? There's also one in Watauga where they give away free diapers. Parents come for the free diapers, but stay because they show them toys that are appropriate for a 6-month-old, etc. So I know it can be done, but you're right. It's not. I wouldn't say, okay, go on, Cindy, make that happen. I think my job is to try to help pull those resources together.
Since we're talking about not necessarily funding pre-K, we're talking about, how do we feel, whether it's important or not. I think it's safe to say, not only does it help us learn that child and the child learn the system, it helps the system learn that child and the family. And that's vital information that we wouldn't necessarily get so early on if we didn't have pre-K. My daughter attended Mary Frances Wall, so I'll tell you that I adore that program as well. But I think, we're talking about why is it important, and maybe even, suggestive of supporting from, the state and from the community level. And I think working together, we could do anything. I think we need to stop, what's the word I'm looking for? We need to stop cutting ourselves off and saying, oh, this is not going to happen because of this. We need to start finding solutions. I know we can say, well, it was done this way before, and we talked to this state legislator before and they wouldn't, and we can keep on saying that. And until we start addressing the root of the problems, I'll say this again, I'm a social worker, so I'm usually that middle woman, and I'm trying to bring folks together and figure out, not that we don't have the money, where do we get the money from? That is the end all be all in my mind. Let's stop saying I can't. We teach children all the time to stop saying I can't. So let's stop doing that as adults.
And I'd like to add, as being a kindergarten counselor for 33 years, the information that came to us from preschool was so valuable in placing children in kindergarten, because kindergarten's the hardest grade level to place because you know nothing about the majority of them. and parents do the best they can to tell you. And of course, teaching styles makes a difference. So yes, and Mary Frances Wall is wonderful in inviting counselors over to observe the child before they leave, so that we get a picture of this child, because sometimes it's hard to discuss a child that you don't have that image of. And the information that the preschool sends us is just so valuable for that teacher. And of course, if a child is shy, you don't want 15 shy children in one room. So it's just very valuable information to get that child off to a good start in the public schools.
And I want to say that we're not doing things that are developmentally appropriate in our K-5 schools. If you're a third grader, 8 years old, and you take the test and it's 1 to 5 and you're proficient, a 3 or less, we're sending home a letter to your parents that says your child's not on trajectory to be college or career ready, to an 8-year-old. That doesn't motivate them. That doesn't help them move forward. It's punitive. So I love the things that you're talking about. And Keisha, I'm so behind you, because I think there's money in North Carolina and people want to do good things. We just have to find them and put it together. And I think that's my job.
I love it.
Okay, moving on. What are the issues in recruiting and retaining qualified teachers?
Okay, so from someone who works in a school of education, in 2008, I teach the introductory class to elementary education and middle grades. In 2008, I had over 200 students in that class every semester. I'm teaching it right now with 62. We cannot recruit teachers if we don't give them the dignity, the respect they deserve, and that includes wages that are comparable to someone else who has a degree and uses it in their field. So I don't think salaries are everything, but we must do that. And then to recruit, we should have a high school cadet program that goes into schools and helps kids realize, how impactful this can be, how rewarding it can be, and if it's a proper amount of money, they're going to want to do it. I think in terms of teachers of color, I am going to surround myself with a diverse cabinet and a diverse Department of Public Instruction, because I think our growing new teachers need to know there's opportunity beyond the classroom. Someone asked me how I was going to recruit more Black males into teaching. Males are hard to find too. I said, I think I'm going to have an advisory group of Black males, because they need to be in this conversation, right? They need to say, these are the things that would make it more appealing to me. So we have I think there's a lot of ideas, but the first thing is the salary, and then things like pay them for their master's pay, give them due process, let them have health care after they retire, et cetera, et cetera.
Dr. Jen, I'm going to jump in. You mentioned something about going into the high schools and talking to the prospective teachers. I have many family members who are teachers. In fact, I think I'm one of the only ones who went a somewhat different route. But the problem I'm understanding is not only, I think, are the teachers not receiving the pay, but I think it's important for someone to go and speak to the teachers and talk to them about what it really entails as well, because I think my niece and I were talking, and she is an assistant principal, and she was saying, some of the teachers get in and they come in here and they're excited and they're doing well, and she's excited for them, and the school is like, yay, we finally got what we need and things are great. And then things start happening with the behaviors with the students and the kids, the teachers finding out, oh gosh, this isn't an 8 to 4 job. I've got to take this work home, or I've got to come early, or, I'm staying here 2 hours late. And it's a never ending, cycle for the teachers. And sometimes they go in not realizing that that's part of the responsibility, where they're making $37.50, $37.5 a year, and they're leaving and going to corporate America and making twice as much, because their day ends and they get to leave it there. And unfortunately, the bottom line is that there is going to be work to take home. However, that's something, like you said, going in and letting them know that these are the things, you know, that are going to be facing them when they become teachers. And I think the feeling undervalued, like you said, not getting the incentives as they move up and feeling like it's worth it. I remember being a probation officer, and at some point, there was no reason to apply to be anything beyond what we called the PO 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, once you got to a certain level where you're not getting any more money, so why bother? You know, at that point, it's time to bail because there are no more incentives. And so it's I think we mentioned teachers and the other state employees. I think it's an issue all across the whole state throughout other areas, obviously, of the state.
I think there are many problems that, you know, we have to factor in when we're talking about teachers. I don't think it's just about pay. I don't think teachers come to school every day just because of what they're making. You know, I talk to teachers all the time, and they feel like their voices aren't heard. The decisions are being made and they're not a part of the discussion. And I think that's an easy fix. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I'm an average person. I'm a normal person. And I think we got to remember our teachers are too. They want the same things that we want. When I walk into work, I want to feel valued. You know, it's not always about the pay. I want to know that my job, if something happens, COVID-19, that they're going to respect the same things that they would want to happen in their family. I want to know that I'm going to be able to take off from work if I get COVID, or if my kid get COVID, or if my mother gets COVID. Teachers want the same things. And I think we've lost sight of that at some point in time. I was on the phone last night with a teacher, and I'm just asking, you know, help me understand, you know, your point of view. And we don't do that right now. Teachers feel voiceless. And I want you on this call to imagine what it feels like to be voiceless. That's what our teachers are experiencing.
And I've noticed, with a little help, that we haven't heard from Nora, you know, where we are talking about voices, because you are absolutely right. And so I want to ask Nora kind of why is she doing this, Nora? What's your passion? What do you hope to change in Cabarrus County?
Well, so I grew up in Florida, and I understand how difficult it is for the girl, my younger girl especially. So I just want to be a part of the decisions that their education is going to lead them to, and to ensure that they get everything they can out of it. So that's really what I want to be a part of. I can answer this question, but it's going to be just like what everyone else said.
Well, but you did add to it, because we talked about teachers' voices, but also parents is what you're saying too, right? That
Exactly. That's my position. Yeah.
Yeah,
so I don't have something exactly to experience, but like all jobs, if employees aren't heard or appreciated, they'll look for other careers, and that also comes with compensation and safety. And I think that's maybe something we need to focus on also, making sure that the teachers are safe, whether it's health safety or, you know, environmentally safety.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what Keisha was saying too, because when COVID happened, teachers weren't on the plan to decide what was going to happen, not at the state level. And that is something I can change easily, is to have parents, and which I did. I actually had a reopening plan written by parents and teachers and educators. And safety is so important.
Yeah, and I do want to share, though, that there are many situations and committees, because I serve on some of the committees, the subcommittees within the district, where teachers are represented. But when you get to be a larger district, and we're the 8th in the state, and I can't imagine what happens in Wake, Guilford, and Mecklenburg, but us even being at the 8th, the dilution of the participation is so great, because when you have 2,500 teachers and you have 2 or 3 on the budget committee, the other 2,497 teachers, you know, say, well, nobody's participating. Well, yes, they are. And they speak up at the budget committee, or I'm on the technology committee, I'm on the C&I committee. And teachers are a part of those, but it can't be every teacher at every decision. So we have the school improvement teams, which hopefully teachers will have an opportunity to volunteer for that at their school if that's what they're interested in. That then feeds the school's priorities into the district's budget priorities. And I know, Keisha, you don't want to talk money, but money makes the world go round. And that's unfortunately how we get to decide if we can add programs or not. So we always have to keep that in the conversation.
I want to talk money.
Curious. What's that?
I want to talk money. I like money.
but I'm curious, and we don't have to get into this offline because I know we have a lot of questions to go through here yet, but for the teachers who are on here, if you would just email me and say how you want to participate. I believe the superintendent is still meeting with the local teachers group on a regular basis, but how else do you want to participate? Because just like with elections, we need people to participate with us. How do you want to participate in making decisions in the district?
Well, I want to
So
say,
I'm going to step, oh, sorry.
I want to say at the state level, 20,000 teachers walked into Raleigh and the superintendent didn't come out. That's not having a voice. The reopening plan had a task force of 30 and there was one educator. So educators didn't have a voice. So often those unfunded mandates, teachers would have said something different. In curriculum, I just learned this. Our politicians are writing our curriculum, not educators. Right now, there's a 4th grade standard, because I teach elementary social studies and we pulled out the standards, that our students will value our monuments, and there's a link to the Confederate statue in front of the Capitol. That is an active curriculum right now. And so I know teachers didn't have any conversation about that, and I've learned how those things got in place. So while maybe at the local level we're really good about getting them in, my job at the state level is going to be also to make sure, and not only, I think you made a good point, Cindy, not only do they come in, they have to then go back out and let people know that they were represented. And I'm a member of NCAE. I love NCAE. I think that, you know, we need an organization that represents us. And so there you go.
I would just like to add that as a teacher, I never went into this profession to be rich. I knew what my salary was. Every teacher has a passion for teaching our children or we wouldn't be here. Yes, I wanted to be treated as a professional. I wanted to be respected. But when I retired, and one of the reasons why I enjoyed my job as a counselor, I was not judged by test scores. As I retired 2 years ago, it upset me when teachers were being judged by scores, because that's just one piece of data on a teacher's performance. I was school improvement team chair for 10 years at Odell, and we took lots and lots of surveys. I don't know that we ever saw the data from the surveys. So if we're going to take, which I think that's great, we need to do assessments. But then if you're not going to take the data and come back and share, or take that data to look at principals' performances or what's going on in your school, we take a safety survey, some of that, and we only take that every 2 years. But come back and share it and do something with it. But I had 33 great years with Cabarrus County. But again, I wasn't judged by test scores either.
Can I add a few more things? I went off, rocket a little bit, but I did cover some of the points that I wanted us to think about. I also want us to remember that the teachers are affected by the culture within their respective schools. So if you have this top-down approach and we are not inclusionary with our teachers from the school perspective, then you get, teachers who want to leave, and that's where our retention is also affected. The other thing I was going to say is we've got to make sure that we give our teachers some autonomy. they're the professionals here. You know, I use this example all of the time. You know, my husband wants to fix things around the house, and I'm like, no, let the professionals do that. They are the professionals of their classrooms, and we have to allow them to show us that. You know, and I think that if we start to do, you know, just the smallest of things, I hear you saying when you say it's all about money, some of these things don't require us to go in our wallets and pay somebody to do something.
Okay, I want to speak real quick. I made this comment about the budget and just about the process. Having been a principal in the school system and a teacher who went through this process, I can tell you, by the time you as a teacher, especially seasoned teachers, go through the budget process and you submit your request to from your classroom to your grade level chair, who submits it to the school improvement team, who then submits it to the county and relies on their principal to go and advocate for those budget items. It's really disheartening as a teacher to know that your budget item got cut, but then it's also even more disheartening to the principal to know that we're requesting $230 million in general as a county, but we're only going to receive 20 million or 30 million or 40 million. So money is a huge factor, because without the money, we can't do anything. And what happens is people's trust and their sense of efficacy and their sense of how we feel professionally about our profession and about those who are in leadership and how they care about us, that goes way, way down. So morale is low. And then people end up, as someone said in the chat, leaving the profession or leaving their school or their county to go across the line or across the state line to get a higher supplement and maybe some additional value. But ultimately, we have an opportunity here to not only elect good people to the General Assembly, but to really make the teachers' voices heard. You know, I marched in Raleigh with the teachers 2 years in a row, and I can tell you that was a strong voice. And teachers were so powerful that it enacted certain pieces of legislation or certain policies around the fact that they couldn't take off for this type of day again, or else they'd be penalized. You know, it's a wonder teachers are feeling this way. We're constantly suppressed on every level. So we really must help to restore professionalism to the organization or to the field of education as a whole. We have to value our teachers, and we need to get more of them in Raleigh on some of these committees on the state level, because then it'll be run a little bit more correct and in a better way, in my opinion. So that's my pledge as your future state representative.
Okay, as we continue on, this will likely be our last question because there are a few things left to wrap up with the meeting after this. So looking for a good question to close it out. But before I do, I want to say thank you again for all of our panelists for being here, for all of our candidates, and for just everybody who showed up, because education is very important. And I love the interaction that all of our candidates are having right now. You know, the level of detail being talked about is something that you don't see all the time. And it's just very, you know, it's inspiring to me as a student and as a person who wants to be a teacher in the future as well. So the last question I will pose to everyone is, for any teachers or students that are having a hard time adapting to new circumstances, do you have any advice for them?
I do. You talking around? Okay. I thought someone else had jumped in. I apologize. I do. The first thing I want to say is Vincent was so kind to join me on my training, which I was having technical difficulties that day. But I think when we got a hold of the meet, was able to see that in the training, we talked about ways to deal with this, to cope with our new normal. And the first thing that I wanted to challenge the parents, the teachers, and the students to do is relax, relate, release. You know, this is new for everybody. This is difficult for a lot of people. And the first thing I want to say is go easy on ourselves. All of us go easy on ourselves. I have a mantra that maybe I might use a little too loosely, and it's not that serious. You know, if nobody's dying, you know, in this very moment, it's not killing us to log off, log off. You know, I had someone say to me that their child who has special needs has cerebral palsy also, was sitting in front of the computer for 6 hours on Monday, the very first day. And he began to cry. And, you know, I said to her, that's not acceptable. That's not okay. You know, you have got to know when enough is enough as the parent as well. So we have to work together. And in doing that, the number one thing is to communicate with the teacher, get to know your teacher, find out the easiest and best and fastest ways to communicate with your teacher, the TA, the principal, whoever you can get a hold of, and explain to them, you know, what's going on. You should have a relationship such that there is an understanding. Everybody's trying to work from home. Some people, you know, can't work from home. They've got to go someplace. So we want to make sure that you're able to communicate. He's having a rough day. We're going to log off for now. They're recording, you know, the teachers' sessions now with the students, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful idea, because it allows for families to be able to log on whenever they're available to do so. So I would say relax, you know, communicate with the teachers, talk to your teachers about, you know, a better time that your child can do it. If my kid can't get this done today, we'll get it done by Tuesday. I think that is acceptable. And I think that's where we have to be right now, because we first have to be mindful, again, of what Keisha and I keep talking about that holistic person, you know, emotional and mental states. You guys heard me say my brother committed suicide back in September. And a big part of that problem was, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to parent. I don't know how to live every day with the things that I've got on my shoulders. And there's a lot of people going through that right now. So we all have to be okay with saying, now's not a good time. I'll pick this back up a little bit later. Building support systems in a time like this is hard, but it's not impossible. We have to go back. This is something we do have to go back in the day and bring forward. Build families with the people that are around you. Maybe everybody's not fortunate enough to live next door to their grandmothers or their aunts and uncles, but build relationships with your neighbors so that you guys can help each other out in a time like this. Create a pact and say, okay, I'm gonna stay clean for this long, or stay away from people for this long, so that hopefully minimize, you know, the likelihood that one of us gets sick. But we've got to stand in for one another. So those are the things that I would say. Number one is just relax and calm down, you know, communicate, build the supports around you, know who to contact. As far as, I think Keisha and I talked about that as well, as far as, you know, getting resources around the educational, social, emotional piece of it all. And if it's a counselor, if it's the school counselor, calling the school and saying, we're having a hard time, what can you offer to us? Can you send somebody? Can somebody call? Can the counselor call and get on the phone? But those would be my things. First and foremost, let's calm down and let's take this day by day. It's not that serious.
I'm going to jump in real quick because I got word that Dr. Mangram has to leave us. So I wanted to give her some time to speak and say her goodbyes or whatever she wants to say.
Thank you. I am ridiculously impressed with this group. And I'm hoping that we all win and that you will keep in touch with me because your voices are heard. And I think the emotional and social well-being of our kids is top to me. And then academics will follow. And so I hope you take a chance to read my vision or my mission. I think my email's on there. Anything you want to send me that I need to know, please do. And Taylor, this was so good. Like, I think this is the best one that I've participated in. It's very rich, and I appreciate it. And there's my email. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Oh gosh, it's great. All right, I will talk to y'all again. We're gonna do this again when we're all in office.
Thank you.
I'd like to kind of play off of what Laquila was saying from the standpoint of, if we as the adults can be positive about the current situation we're in, even if we're torn up inside, try not to let the kids see it. Make it an event from a standpoint of an adventure. I have seen so many pictures, and some of my friends and people I don't even know who have posted how they've made little learning spaces in their home, and it's a special place for their child. The children will remember that. They will remember how they felt. And if they can be made to feel that this can be fun, this can be new, it can be a positive experience, then I think we have made the best of what we can. And I think it's important to realize each of us didn't create the pandemic, the school system didn't create it, the state didn't create it. But we're trying to do the best we can with the circumstances we're in. So I have been excited as, and you know, the public doesn't always see what board members are pushing the district to do individually or collaboratively, but as we got the Chromebooks out to all those students, we originally weren't going to include K-2. I personally thought that was very important, got other board members to agree with me, and the additional purchases were made because in school, kindergarten typically uses an iPad. So, but just to get what the students needed to work at home, I wish we could solve everybody's internet problems. That's just beyond what we can do as a district. We're trying to do some compensation by having hotspots in certain places and whatnot. But I think that the most important thing is to be positive about whatever hand you're dealt with, whether it's this pandemic or in life. You've got to see something good in it to get through it with your sanity. So, thank you.
I'm a big proponent of planning. I think this is the time when we should be implementing plans. I know with my daughter at home, we knew what was coming, so we put a plan in place, we scheduled things. And I also think that this is a time when we've got to come together as a community. We can't continue to point the finger and blame folks. And I concur with what Cindy is saying. We have to, as the adults, be positive about this situation because undoubtedly it's what we have right now and we've got to make the best of it. I think that we band together, we create groups so that we don't pressure or put too much pressure on the teachers or the students. As parents, we can make groups online and start, putting questions in there and, kind of answering them together and figuring out a way to help the system as opposed to taxing it with negativity.
And I just want to say I admire all the teachers. Last week I sit here and I thought, now how would I handle this? And of course, technology right now, I'm learning all this Zoom and everything, but I know it has to be hard and it's a different method of instruction. And I would have had to go and find coworkers that could have helped me. So I hope teachers are getting support from other teachers and from the tech specialists. But I just want to say I admire the teachers for learning new method of instructions and for parents for making it work in their homes. And because I'm just not sure how I would have handled it.
I have similar advice too. It's just try your best. That's what I tell my kids all the time. And the best way we learn is by failing until we succeed. So just, keep trying.
All righty. That will conclude our panel section. It was an excellent discussion. I really enjoyed it. I hope everybody else did. I know there's just a few more housekeeping things. Vincent will go ahead and pull that up. But I do want to thank everybody for coming out again and for all of our participants for taking part in this amazing discussion. It's been very informative and I liked it very much. So again, this was a Cabarrus Coalition event. So we had the Democratic Party, the Senior Dems, and the Women Dems all come together to help promote this and to help get attendance to this event. It's how we come together as we're facing down a huge election this November. For anybody who's here from the County Party, Senior Dems, and Women Dems that want to say anything, now is the time. Please feel free. Bobby, I didn't see if you were here, but if you're here and you want to say anything, feel free to say something.
I'm here and thank you so much. I appreciate what you did Taylor, this was excellent. And I commend the Young Dems for putting this together. All I can say is everybody just get out here and get the word out, that everyone know that we need every vote to count. And in order to get everyone elected, we need everybody in the trenches doing everything they can to turn Cabarrus County blue. Thanks.
Vincent, do you have anything you want to add? Vincent? You gone? Oh. Vincent, are you there? Did you mute yourself? Am I muted?
He's still on mute.
Vincent, you're on mute. Where'd you go? Anyway, I don't know, again, I don't see who was in here. If
Sorry about that, Taylor.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. Yeah, I'm so proud of everything that you've done in pulling all of this together, and Catherine, Jeans, for pulling all of this together. I think Kathleen Hannon is also on this call, representing the Democratic Women, and I know she's got several events planned for the fall. Kathleen, if you're there, you might want to share about that.
I'm here, Vincent, and thank you guys. Thank you, Taylor, for putting this together. And I just want to alert everybody, please put on your calendar. We have on September 3rd, we have Secretary of State Elaine Marshall, who's going to be with us, as well as our school board members are returning. For those who might have missed tonight, need to know, because there's a lot of names, a lot of faces, and a lot of ideas that were certainly circulated tonight that a lot of people won't be aware of, and you're not going to see a blue billing as next to school board members. It's really important to know who they are and what you're supporting. On the 24th of September, we have our one and only appearance, I believe, here in Cabarrus for Chief Justice Cherry Beasley, as well as County Commissioner candidate Sabrina Berry. And on October 22nd, we have Justin Timmons Goodson coming back, as well as our own Amy and Gail running for the General Assembly here. We need to know who all these women are and what they're supporting and what we can do to help get these people elected. So please, please put it on your calendar, share it. And meanwhile, please fill out your absentee ballot.
Yes, definitely.
That's a great segue, don't you think, Taylor?
Yeah, it is. Martin, are you in there somewhere?
Martin's on. I know he's out there, and it's a great segue for him to tell us a little bit about that voting and a couple of events that he's got planned for September. Martin, you out there?
I am.
Hey.
You want me to speak a little bit about this? Okay.
Yeah, I think give just the heads up, because I know you're having like almost an hour meeting on the 1st and on the 2nd.
Yes. Did want to let people know this is an educational note. If you're voting for the Cabarrus County School Board, be sure you turn your ballot over. It will be on the back side of the ballot. So, turn it over and select from these fine people that you heard from tonight. You do get to select for up to 4. Having some virtual town hall meetings talking about absentee voting and the other ways of voting here in Cabarrus County. I've been invited by the Gail Young campaign to give my nonpartisan talk on September 1st for people in District 83, and then doing one that's more general that I believe the coalition, as well as the U.S. House District 8 coordinator, is holding on September 2nd. Times are as shown here, and do want everybody to understand how they can safely vote this coming election, whether it's by absentee, early voting, or election day, and those will be the topics covered.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Martin. I appreciate that.
Hi, I wanted to say something. My name is Byron, and I actually work for the Gale Young campaign. And if anyone wants to sign up for the one on September 1st, I can put the link to sign up in the chat. I'm sorry, I don't mean to hijack.
Yeah, not a problem. Well, everyone, this has been a great meeting. I think there's just one or two more people I'd hope can identify themselves if they're on the call. Marcus Singleton, running for State Senate 36. Are you out there? Are you still available to just say hey? And
yes, sir, I am here. And I want to thank everyone for this informative discussion tonight. Thank each of you for your input. Education is very dear to me. I learned the hard way. Went through high school and then went to college and immediately dropped out of college, went into the Army, and all the while my parents had expressed the importance of education, but I didn't get it until after the fact. And so since then, I've been a proponent for education through my work as a teacher, through my work as an administrator for leadership development programs, and also as a pastor. So while I may have missed my full calling as a teacher, I really feel in my lane as a pastor and as a minister and as a public servant. So I look forward to working with you all. To Cindy's point around money, I really believe that we have to resource what we say is important. And if education is the bedrock of our society, then we have to put money behind that. And so if and when I'm elected, I will be an advocate for teachers. I will be an advocate for education. And I will be in the schools. I will be in the county. I will be available because I know how important education is. If we don't do our work on education and invest in education, then what are we saying to our future? We're really saying that we don't care about what happens in our future. And so we have some work to do in North Carolina in terms of raising our ranking, because education, again, we understand is a means that it's also brings in money. You mentioned money, Cindy, and as the higher our education or levels are, or our system is, our educational system is, the more attractive we're going to be to businesses that want to come to our county. So I thank you all for this opportunity, and I look forward to us working together to ensure that our teachers and our families and our students are properly taken care of through the educational system.
thank you, Marcus. And I noticed too that Kevin Vincent is on the line. I think he's still here, running for county commissioner. I'm not sure if Sabrina was on the call this evening, but Kevin, are you out there? And I mean, there was so much mentioned about working together at the county level with the school board candidates.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Vincent. This is Kevin Vincent. I'm running for Cabarrus County Commissioner. And I just wanted to say everything that Marcus said was great. And I just want to say that I think that we have some great candidates that are running for school board in Cabarrus County. And as he mentioned, how important education is. I think we have the great leaders here on this call today that will help push Cabarrus County forward.
Well, thank you. Sabrina, are you out there at all? I didn't see your name on the list. And if not, we'll catch up with you next time. No? Okay, so Taylor, closing comments. I think you hosted a really great meeting. I'm really looking forward to getting this recording done and getting it available to everyone who's on the call.
Yeah, I think it was a really good meeting. Very proud of what we achieved and what we were able to talk about. On that note, I want to echo what Kathleen was saying. Women Dems have the same school board candidates coming at their meeting coming up in a few days. Make sure you attend that, because there is so much at stake with education, and it's very important, and we have to know as much as we can and help our candidates out. For example, we had a long list of questions and we made it to less than half of them. So there is a lot more to ask and a lot more to know. So once again, thank you everybody for coming out, and thank you to all of our school board candidates. And Dr. Jen already left, but I will be thanking her for showing up. It was a fantastic event, if I can say so my own self. But other than that, that is it. And thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. Have a great evening and a great week.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everybody
Thank
be
you,
safe.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye
Be
now.
safe.